I quite like the absurdity and inverse snobbery of old luxury cars. There's something very appealing about faded glory. So sort of mid-80s Rolls Royces, bit of rust bubbling through them. I think they're just hugely cool, and I'd quite like to knock about in one of those. But we haven't got always testing cars. I would quite like one at the moment, I have to say. What would I like? I'd quite like a Bentley Mulsanne Turbo or something really shit, that just sort of leaks oil and has hydraulics that break the whole time.
You do have a medical condition.
But you just look like a bit of a drug dealer, and I think it looked quite cool.
Now, I get to see some cool stuff on a weekly basis, but this Bentley S2 is magnificent because it's got some life in it, Don't respray all this, don't paint it, because the interior is a minter, absolute minter. It's lovely inside. But if you go to the boot, you see this, right? Alpine sub. That's right. This is the ultimate Le Mans tender party bus, because when you get into the cabin, you realise that isn't a radio. This is, and it sounds wicked. Absolutely fantastic motor car. Party bus.
There's a lovely story. You've got a bit of time. There's a lovely story about the coolest Rolls Royce of all. There was a family that owned a company called Caterham, and they were great. And I'm probably going to get myself in legal trouble. No, I'm not. And they had, the sons that ran the company had a Rolls Royce they'd bought from an auction for fuck all money. It was like $4,000, and it was beige, or sort of Jewish racing gold as they call it in the motor trade in the UK. It was like horrible bronzy beigey colour. And rather than take taxis everywhere when they were out in London, they bought this shit Rolls Royce, and they met a friendly cab driver that had driven them around a few times, and they said, right, I think it was called Sultan, you get to keep the Rolls Royce. It's yours. You just keep it in the garage. You can use it whenever you want. The deal is, whenever we want you, you pick us up in the Rolls Royce and you take us to places if we're out in town or whatever. And that's the way it worked. This thing had sort of rust bubbles all down the side, and it had a massive Alpine hi-fi had been fitted through some contra deal, I think, with Alpine. So they'd got their own fitters to fit a massive amount of hi-fi in it. And all it had was AC/DC discs, I remember. You were not allowed to listen to anything else. And it had this, between the back seats where the two people would sit in the back, there was a really crap old cool box. And in the cool box was just Stella Artois, which in England is known as wife beater, which is just quite an ugly beer, really. There's a luxury about Stella Artois over here because it's kind of a French brand. But actually in England it's just known as wife beater. It's the lowest common denominator. People get a bit fighty on it. So you used to sit in this thing. Sultan would drive you somewhere. We used to go to the rugby at Twickenham, which is quite dignified, and all the Range Rovers park up and people have their hampers before they go on to watch the game. And Sultan would basically muscle his way into the car park with no pass at all. We'd be in the back, Stella Artois, AC/DC coming out the back of it, rust bubbles all down the side of it. And to this day, that is the coolest Rolls Royce I'll ever go in. It's just a wicked machine. And I love that. I like the faded glory of the slightly shit, over-the-top luxury car. Please tell me you agree.
I agree now.
there's a majesty about them, and I think particularly the ones that cost way too much money in the period. We're all a sucker for value. We're all suckers for value, aren't we? We love saying to people that was £100 when it was new. I think people love beginning sentences with that to people that don't really know. I've got this. Yeah, that was £150 when it was new. I gave £3 for it. At which point the clever response is, that's because it's fucking worth £3. Look at it. It's a disgrace.